What if Rimuru x MHA, the hero copycat? By Rimuru Edward 6. This is a crossover between that time I got reincarnated as a slime and My Hero Academia. This fanfic will have All for One as the main villain and will follow the perspective of Rimuru. Chapter 11. All for One POV. As I tapped my fingers against the polished surface of my desk, the dim light from the monitors cast long shadows across the room. Each flickering screen displayed failures that could no longer be ignored. Hawks was a formidable adversary, but his sudden streak of precision was not his alone. No, Rimuru was behind this. The realization sent a mixture of pride and irritation coursing through me. She had learned well, better than I could have hoped. Her strategic mind, her ability to anticipate and adapt, it was all sharpened under my care. But now, she dared to use those very skills against me. Fascinating. Bold. But foolish. I turned my attention to the reports, sifting through the details like pieces of a puzzle. Hawk's movements were too targeted, his timing too perfect. It was no coincidence that my plans began unraveling the moment my agents reported faint whispers of a figure operating in the shadows alongside him. Rimuru, I said, my voice smooth and laced with amusement. You've always had a knack for meddling where you don't belong. But her presence meant she wasn't hiding anymore. She'd surfaced, likely out of desperation, and in doing so, she'd left breadcrumbs. And breadcrumbs can be followed. I pressed a button on the console in front of me. A holographic screen appeared, displaying a list of my operatives still in play. Each name was a pawn, but pawns were necessary in any game. Overseer, I called, my voice reverberating in the silent chamber. A figure stepped forward from the shadows, their silhouette stiff and obedient. Yes, my lord. I have a task for you, I said, leaning back in my chair. Rimuru is alive, active, and interfering. I want you to follow Hawk's movements. Track every mission he undertakes, every success he achieves. There will be traces of her there. Find them. Yes, my lord, Overseer said with a low bow. I smiled, the pieces of the game beginning to align in my mind. And once you find her, I continued, my voice soft but menacing, bring her to me. Unharmed. I want her to see just how futile her efforts are. To understand that no matter how far she runs, she'll always be part of me. Overseer nodded and disappeared into the darkness without another word. I turned back to the monitors, my fingers steepled as I considered the next move. Rimuru was clever, but she was also predictable in one way, she would never stop fighting against me. That resolve, while admirable, would also be her undoing. You've drawn Hawks into your game, I murmured, my smile widening. But you've made one critical mistake, my dear. I leaned forward, my eyes narrowing at the screen displaying Hawk's latest victory. You've made it personal. The game had begun in earnest now, and I was more than willing to play. After all, no one knew Rimuru Tempest better than I did. Hawk's POV. The city was quiet tonight, the kind of eerie calm that always set me on edge. I soared over the rooftops, my wings slicing through the cool air as I scanned the streets below. The last few missions had gone smoothly, too smoothly, and something told me it wouldn't last. Sure enough, my earpiece buzzed. Copycat here, Rimuru's voice came through, a usual calm tone carrying an edge of urgency. Go ahead, I said, banking left to land on a nearby rooftop. What's the situation? There was a pause, and when she spoke again, her voice was lower, almost hesitant. My connection to you has been compromised by All for One. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Compromised? What do you mean? How does he know? I don't know how yet, she admitted, her voice clipped. But it's clear he's noticed my involvement. He's started tracking your movements, using you to try and find me. This isn't just a suspicion anymore, Hawks. It's a fact. I clench my fists, my feathers bristling with frustration. So what do we do? If he's onto you, that puts you in danger. Exactly, she said, her tone sharpening. That's why I'm cutting off regular contact. Don't make any attempts to reach me unless it's absolutely necessary. If we keep working too closely, he'll use it against both of us. I leaned against the ledge, trying to process what she was saying. Cutting off contact was the last thing I wanted. It was her intel that had been keeping me ahead of the game. But if All for One really was closing in on her? I don't like this, I said finally, my voice low. If he knows about you, going dark might not be enough to keep you safe. You need backup? I don't need backup, she snapped, then softened slightly. I just need to stay ahead of him. You've got your missions, Hawks, and I've got mine. Splitting up is the best move right now. Her logic was sound, but it didn't sit right with me. What about your assistant? I asked, grasping at straws. Can they keep you safe? There was a brief pause before she answered. He doesn't know the full extent of what's happening. And I'm keeping it that way for his sake. He's not ready for this kind of fight. I gritted my teeth, my frustration bubbling over. You're taking too much on yourself, Rimuru. You can't fight this alone. I've been fighting this alone for years, she said, her voice quiet but firm. And I've survived this long. I'll be fine, Hawks. The line went silent for a moment, and I could almost feel the weight of her words pressing against me. This isn't goodbye, she said finally. But until things settle down, we need to stay apart. Don't worry, I'll still be watching your back from a distance. Just don't try to reach me unless it's an emergency. I exhaled slowly, the tension in my chest refusing to ease. You're too damn stubborn for your own good, you know that. She chuckled softly, a sound that carried both warmth and sadness. Takes one to know one. And just like that, the line went dead. I stood there for a long time, staring out at the city lights. I hated the idea of being cut off from her, but I knew she was right. If All for One was targeting her through me, staying connected would only make things worse. Stay safe, Rimuru, I murmured, spreading my wings and taking to the sky. The weight of her absence settled heavily on my shoulders as I flew, but I knew one thing for certain, I wasn't going to let All for One win. Not this time. Chapter 12. All for One POV. The chamber was dim, illuminated only by the faint glow of my monitors. Each screen displayed a piece of the puzzle, intercepted transmissions, agent reports, and the aftermath of Hawk's recent successes. My agents had been meticulous, combing through every detail. And now, they'd brought me the one thing I needed, a name. Rimuru, I said softly, tasting the word as if it held a secret flavor. The report lay before me, delivered by one of my more competent underlings. Hawks had been overheard severing a partnership with someone by that name, citing the need for distance due to compromised security. A reasonable move, but one that only confirmed my suspicions. A low chuckle escaped my lips. So, you finally surfaced, my dear. I leaned back in my chair, my fingers steeped lead as I processed the information. Rimuru Tempest. My daughter. The one I'd mold into a weapon, a mind sharper than any blade. She was supposed to be mine, an extension of my will. Yet here she was, aligning herself with Hawks, the very enemy who'd been dismantling my plans piece by piece. How poetic, I mused. The daughter of All for One working with the wings of the hero world. It was almost laughable. Almost. I turned to the figure standing silently nearby, Overseer, one of my more trusted operatives. What else have you found? Overseer stepped forward, bowing slightly. We've confirmed that Hawk's recent successes are tied to Rimuru's intel. She's been operating under the alias Copycat and appears to possess extensive knowledge of our network. However, her decision to sever ties indicates an awareness of your pursuit. She's always been clever, I murmured, a note of pride threading through my voice despite the circumstances. But cleverness alone won't save her. Overseer hesitated, then added, there is one more detail, my lord. Rimuru is not working alone. She has an assistant, someone young, inexperienced, but surprisingly insightful. We've yet to identify them. I raised an eyebrow, intrigued. An assistant? Interesting. Tell me more. Reports suggest this individual has a knack for analyzing quirks and strategies, providing valuable support to Rimuru's operations. However, their identity remains unknown. I smirked, the pieces falling into place. Someone inexperienced, yet capable of assisting Rimuru on such a level? It had to be someone new, someone ambitious, someone who didn't yet understand the stakes. It seems Rimuru has found herself an apprentice, I said, my tone laced with amusement. How quaint. Overseer remained silent, awaiting my command. Double the surveillance on Hawks, I ordered, my voice turning cold. And expand the search for Rimuru. She thinks she's hidden, but she's left a trail, one that we'll follow to its end. Yes, my lord, Overseer said, bowing deeply before disappearing into the shadows. Alone once more, I turned my attention back to the monitors. Rimuru, I said softly, a faint smile tugging at my lips. You've grown bold, but you're playing a dangerous game. Did you think I wouldn't recognize your hand in this? Did you think you could hide from me forever? My gaze hardened as I leaned forward, the glow of the monitors reflecting in my eyes. You may have severed your ties with Hawks, but it won't save you. I will find you, and when I do, you'll remember exactly who you belong to. The room fell silent as I began to plan my next move, the thrill of the hunt rekindling the fire inside me. The game was far from over. And this time, I would win. Izuku POV. Rimuru set her phone down with a soft sigh, her golden eyes reflecting the faint glow of the desk lamp. I'd been sitting across from her, flipping through my notebook nervously while she handled what seemed like an important call. But now, the air in the room felt heavy, charged with something unspoken. She leaned back in her chair, running a hand through her silver hair. Knowing too much really is the most powerful weapon, she muttered, almost to herself. I frowned, setting my notebook down. Rimuru, is everything okay? She looked at me, and for the first time, I saw something in her expression I hadn't seen before, a hesitation. Thanks for the assistance, Izuku, she said quietly. You helped a lot. More than you realize. Her words sent a small rush of pride through me, but the way she said it made my chest tighten. But, she continued, her tone soft but firm, I can't let you help again. Not directly. What? I asked, my voice rising. Why not? Did I do something wrong? No, it's not that, she said quickly, shaking her head. You were amazing, Izuku. Your analysis, your insights, they made all the difference. Then why? Because the risks have skyrocketed, she cut in, her golden eyes locking onto mine. The villains are on my trail now. All for One's people aren't just watching Hawks anymore, they're looking for me. If they figure out you're connected to me, they'll come for you too. And I can't let that happen. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I'd known she was dealing with dangerous people, but hearing it laid out so plainly made it feel all too real. But Rimuru, I said, my voice trembling, you're dealing with this alone. You can't keep carrying all of this by yourself. Let me help. She gave me a small, sad smile. I appreciate that, Izuku. I really do. But laying low is my best chance at staying ahead of them. And if you're seen helping me, it puts both of us in even more danger. I clenched my fists, frustration bubbling up inside me. So what am I supposed to do? Just sit here and do nothing while you're out there risking everything. You keep being who you are, she said simply. Focus on your training, your studies, on becoming the hero I know you can be. That's how you'll help me. Her words didn't feel like enough, but the determination in her gaze left no room for argument. How long will you be gone? I asked softly. She hesitated, then looked away. I don't know. As long as it takes. The silence between us felt heavy, filled with words neither of us could say. Finally, she stood up, grabbing her jacket. "I'll keep in touch when I can," she said, her voice steady. "But don't try to contact me. It's safer that way." I nodded reluctantly, my heart sinking. "Rimuru, be careful." She paused at the door, looking back at me with a faint smile. "You too, Izuku. And remember, you're stronger than you think. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." With that, she was gone, leaving me alone in the quiet room. I sat there for a long time, staring at my notebook but unable to focus. Rimuru had always seemed invincible to me, but now I realized just how much she was carrying, and how dangerous her world really was. "I'll keep working, Rimuru," I thought, clutching my notebook tightly. "And one day, I'll be strong enough to stand beside you, no matter what we're facing." Chapter 13. All for one POV. The quiet hum of my lair was broken by the sound of hurried footsteps. One of my lieutenants burst into the chamber, his face pale and drenched in sweat. "My lord," he stammered, bowing deeply. We have a situation." I raised an eyebrow, leaning back in my chair. "A situation? Do elaborate." "It's Rimuru," he said, his voice shaking. She's here." I stilled, my fingers pausing mid-tap on the armrest. "Here? In our stronghold?" "Yes," he said, his voice breaking slightly. She's taking down everyone in her path." A slow, cold smile spread across my face. My. How bold of her. And how foolish. The lieutenant flinched at my tone, his fear radiating from him like a beacon. "She's already incapacitated the guards at the east entrance, and she's moving deeper into the facility. We've tried to intercept her, but..." "But what?" I asked, my voice smooth and dangerous. "She's too fast," he said quickly. "She's anticipating every move we make. It's like she already knows our entire layout. She's dismantling our defenses one by one." I stood slowly, the weight of the moment settling over the room. Rimuru wasn't acting out of desperation, this was calculated, deliberate. She wasn't running anymore. She was hunting. How many operatives remain between her and this chamber? I asked, my voice calm but laced with menace. 2 squads, my lord, the lieutenant said. "But at the rate she's moving." "She will reach us," I finished for him, a note of amusement in my voice. "Of course she will. She's my daughter, after all." The lieutenant's eyes widened, his fear intensifying. "What are your orders, my lord?" I considered for a moment, then smiled. "Fall back. Let her come to me." "But, my lord." "She wants a confrontation," I said, cutting him off. "Let her have it. I've been waiting for this moment for a long time." The lieutenant hesitated, then bowed deeply. "Yes, my lord." He turned and fled, leaving me alone in the chamber once more. I turned toward the monitors, watching as Rimuru's golden eyes burned with determination. She moved through the corridors like a storm, her every action precise and deadly. My operatives fell before her like leaves in the wind, their quirks and weapons useless against her relentless advance. "Impressive," I murmured, my smile widening. "You've grown stronger than I imagined, Rimuru. But strength alone won't be enough to defeat me." I clasped my hands behind my back, waiting patiently as the sound of chaos drew closer. "Come, my dear," I said softly, the thrill of anticipation rising in my chest. "Let us see if you are truly ready to face the master of this game." The echoes of battle drew nearer, a symphony of chaos that only served to fuel my amusement. Every step Rimuru took closer to my chamber was a declaration, a testament to her resolve. The final squad guarding the corridor outside my room fell, their panicked cries cut short by her relentless precision. Then, silence. And the door opened. Rimuru stepped through, her silver hair streaked with dust and sweat, her golden eyes blazing with fury. She was composed, but the tension in her stance betrayed her simmering anger. "Father," she said coldly, her voice cutting through the heavy air. I smiled, spreading my arms in mock welcome. Rimuru, my dear. What an unexpected visit. You've made quite the entrance. Don't play games with me, she snapped, her fists clenching at her sides. You know why I'm here. Of course, I said, my tone soft but laced with amusement. You finally decided to confront me directly. A bold choice. But tell me, Rimuru, do you truly believe you can win? Her glare sharpened. It's not about winning. It's about ending this. You've hurt too many people, twisted too many lives. It stops here. I chuckled, shaking my head. Ah, such righteous conviction. You remind me so much of your mother. Her expression faltered for a brief moment, a flicker of pain crossing her features. Then, it was gone, replaced by steely determination. Don't you dare talk about her, she said, her voice low and dangerous. You don't get to use her memory against me. I sighed, feigning disappointment. So defensive. But I suppose that's to be expected. After all, you've always been so sentimental. She took a step forward, the air between us crackling with tension. You've spent your life manipulating and destroying everything you touch. But you underestimated me, father. I'm not a pawn in your game anymore. I tilted my head, studying her with a mix of admiration and curiosity. You've grown strong, Rimuru. Stronger than I anticipated. But strength is not enough to defeat me. You know that, don't you? Her golden eyes narrowed. I'm not here to fight you. Not yet. I'm here to deliver a message. I raised an eyebrow, intrigued. A message? How quaint. Do tell. She squared her shoulders, her voice steady and unyielding. Your reign is ending. I'll make sure of it. Every plan you make, every move you take, I'll be there, tearing it apart piece by piece. You taught me how to think 10 steps ahead, father. Now, I'm using everything you gave me against you. Her words hung in the air, a challenge as clear as the fury in her eyes. I chuckled softly, my amusement unshaken. Bold words, my dear. But words alone won't save you. She took another step forward, her gaze unwavering. We'll see about that. The room fell silent, the tension between us thick and suffocating. Then, without another word, she turned and walked away, leaving the door open behind her. I watched her go, my smile fading into something darker. Rimuru, I murmured, my voice low. You've grown into a formidable opponent. But you've forgotten one thing. I turned back to the monitors, my fingers tapping thoughtfully on the armrest of my chair. You may know my strategies, I said softly, my smile returning, but I know you. The game was far from over, and I intended to remind her exactly who held the upper hand. As the echoes of her footsteps faded into the corridor, a voice slipped into my mind, unbidden and unexpected. Luckily, I've told nobody everything about me that you do not know about. I froze, my amusement replaced with intrigue. Rimuru's voice was calm and composed, but beneath it lay a subtle challenge, a reminder that the game was not as one-sided as I liked to believe. Telepathy. Of course. I'd trained her to harness quirks with precision, but it seemed she'd developed abilities far beyond what I had anticipated. I chuckled softly, leaning back in my chair. So, you've been holding secrets even from me, my dear? How delightful. Her voice didn't return, but the weight of her words lingered. She had a point, I didn't know everything about her anymore. Somewhere along the line, she'd slipped out of my control, crafting her own strategies and hiding pieces of herself even from me. I found it both frustrating and exhilarating. You've grown clever, I murmured, my smile returning. But cleverness has its limits. I stood, pacing the room as her words echoed in my mind. Rimuru was a master of strategy, a mirror of my own teachings. But she was also sentimental, tied to ideals and emotions that made her vulnerable. And vulnerabilities are the keys to breaking even the strongest opponent. I turned to the monitors, watching as the security feeds replayed her systematic takedown of my operatives. Each move she made was deliberate, efficient. But she hadn't stayed to finish the job. "Why, Rimuru?" I murmured. "Why walk away when you had the advantage?" The answer was simple: she wasn't ready. Not yet. She'd come to deliver a message, to test my defenses, but she wasn't confident enough to face me head-on. That hesitation would be her downfall. "Secrets can be powerful," I said, my voice low and thoughtful. "But secrets alone won't save you." I tapped into the communications network, summoning Overseer back into the chamber. "My lord," Overseer said, bowing deeply. "Rimuru has made her move," I said, my tone sharp. "Begin implementing countermeasures. Track every trace of her activity, every contact she's made. She may think she's hidden, but she's left breadcrumbs. Find them." "Yes, my lord," Overseer replied, vanishing into the shadows. I turned back to the monitors, my gaze narrowing as I watched her figure disappear down the corridor. "You've grown strong, Rimuru," I said softly, my voice tinged with both pride and menace. "But you've forgotten one thing: no matter how far you've come, you are still my creation." Her telepathic message had been a clever move, but it only reinforced one undeniable truth: Rimuru and I were locked in a game of wits and willpower. And I always won. Chapter 14. All for one POV. Months passed, and the silence gnawed at me. Rimuru had vanished. Completely. The trail she'd left behind in my stronghold had gone cold. There were no new attacks, no disruptions to my operations, and no whispers of her in the hero world. The hero copycat was officially on leave, an absence confirmed by pro-hero records. That avenue had proven to be a dead end as well. Hawks, however, remained active, as irritatingly effective as ever. He continued to dismantle my networks, taking down my operatives time and again. But this time, his actions bore none of Rimuru's influence. There were no signs of the intricate, calculated tactics that had plagued me before. He was working alone. And succeeding. For all my resources and reach, the game had turned stagnant. Rimuru had removed herself from the board entirely, and Hawks was a moving target I couldn't quite pin down. I sat in the darkened chamber, my fingers tapping against the armrest of my chair, the sound echoing faintly in the stillness. "Months," I murmured, my voice soft but edged with irritation. "And nothing." Overseer knelt before me, his head bowed low. "My lord, we've exhausted every lead. Copycat has disappeared without a trace. Hawks has become more unpredictable, but no connections to her remain." I narrowed my eyes, leaning forward slightly. "Do you mean to tell me that my daughter, a creation of my design, a mind shaped by my own hands, has simply vanished?" Overseer flinched but didn't look up. "It appears so, my lord." The words were infuriating. Rimuru's disappearance wasn't just a setback, it was an insult. She had slipped through my grasp, outwitted me when I should have had the upper hand. But it was also intriguing. I leaned back, a faint smirk tugging at the corners of my mouth. She's clever, I'll give her that. But silence is not her strength. Sooner or later, she'll resurface. They always do. "My lord, if I may," Overseer ventured, his voice tentative. "Speak," I commanded. Perhaps her silence is a ploy to lure us into complacency. She may be waiting for the right moment to strike again. I chuckled softly, the sound low and cold. Perhaps. Or perhaps she's realized the futility of her efforts and chosen to disappear altogether. Either way, it changes nothing. We will proceed as planned. Overseer nodded, retreating into the shadows as I turned back to my monitors. The game wasn't over, it was simply on pause. Rimuru's silence could mean many things, but one thing was certain: I would be ready when she re-emerged. "Hide all you like, my dear," I murmured, my gaze fixed on the empty corridors of my stronghold. "You cannot escape what you are. Sooner or later, you'll come back to me." The months of quiet hadn't dulled my resolve. If anything, they had sharpened it. The game wasn't about who struck first. It was about who struck last. Hawk's POV. I was perched on a rooftop, the city sprawled out below me, illuminated by the glow of streetlights and neon signs. It had been months since I last heard from Copycat, months of handling missions on my own, dismantling villain operations piece by piece. I'd gotten used to working alone again, but her absence had left a void. There were moments when I could still feel her presence, like a shadow moving just out of sight, but she'd gone dark without a word. Until now. Her voice slipped into my mind, clear and calm, carrying that familiar edge of confidence. Copycat here. Do as if this communication isn't happening. I froze, my wings twitching slightly in surprise, but I kept my expression neutral. She was right, I couldn't risk reacting. Sorry for ghosting you for a while, she continued, her tone softer than I remembered. I never left you alone completely, but I had to disappear for a bit. A while back, I had a direct conversation with All for One. Her words hit me like a thunderbolt, but I kept still, forcing myself to stay composed. I made it out in one piece, she added, her voice carrying a faint trace of pride. And I left his entire base knocked out, except for him and a few others. I got the intel I needed, and now I can safely assist you again, if you still want me to. I took a deep breath, keeping my gaze on the horizon as I responded in my thoughts. You're full of surprises, Copycat. Disappearing for months, knocking out All for One stronghold, and now just casually checking in? You're making it hard to keep up. I felt her amusement, even if she didn't laugh aloud. You always keep up, Hawks. That's why I trusted you to handle things while I was gone. Trust is one thing, I thought, my tone serious. But leaving me in the dark? That's a little harder to forgive. There was a pause before she replied, her voice quieter this time. I didn't want to put you at risk. The moment All for One started tracking our connection, I had to cut ties. It wasn't just for my safety, it was for yours too. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. I get it. Still doesn't make it easier. But if you've got the intel you needed and you're ready to help again, then yeah. I still want you on the team. Her voice steadied, a hint of relief seeping through. Good. Because the intel I've gathered is big, Hawks. All for One's plans are shifting, and I know where he's going next. If we move quickly, we can stop him before he gains any more ground. I nodded subtly, my mind already shifting into mission mode. Send me the details when you're ready. And next time? Don't disappear without a heads up. No promises, she said, her voice tinged with amusement. But I'll try. With that, her presence faded from my mind, leaving me alone once again. I exhaled slowly, my feathers ruffling as I stretched my wings. Rimuru was back, and while her method still left me questioning her sanity, there was no denying her value. Copycat, I murmured under my breath, a faint smirk tugging at my lips. Welcome back to the game. The night stretched out before me, but this time, I didn't feel so alone. Izuku POV. The classroom was alive with the hum of conversation and the scratch of pens on paper as everyone settled into their seats. I was doing my best to focus on the lesson, scribbling notes in my notebook as the teacher went on about quirk applications. Then, out of nowhere, I heard it. Hey, I'm back. I froze, my pen hovering over the page. It was Rimuru's voice, clear as if she were sitting right next to me, but it was in my head. It's so good to see you again, Izuku, she continued, her tone warm but tinged with something softer, more vulnerable. Yeah, I'm in the classroom, but you have no idea how much I missed you. I glanced around quickly, trying to spot her, but she wasn't anywhere nearby. How was she doing this? It was really lonely, you know, she added, her voice growing quieter. Being away. Not being able to talk to you. My chest tightened, a rush of emotions flooding over me. She'd been gone for months, no word, no explanation. And now, just like that, she was back, talking to me as if no time had passed. I gripped my pen tightly, trying to keep my expression neutral. Rimuru, I thought back, where are you? What's going on? Why didn't you? Sure, she interrupted, her tone playful but firm. Don't give me away. Just act normal, Izuku. I'll explain everything later. For now, I just wanted to say hi. And to let you know I'm okay. I let out a small, shaky breath, my heart pounding. I'm glad you're okay, I thought back. But you can't just disappear like that, Rimuru. I was worried about you. There was a pause, and then her voice returned, softer this time. I know. I'm sorry. I didn't want to leave you, Izuku, but I didn't have a choice. Things got complicated. I glanced at my notebook, the words on the page blurring as my thoughts raced. You don't have to handle everything on your own, Rimuru. I told you before, I want to help. She chuckled faintly, and I could almost feel the warmth in her smile. You're still the same, Izuku. Always wanting to help. But it's not just about needing help. It's about keeping you safe, too. Her words hung in my mind, and I felt a mix of frustration and relief. She was here, she was okay, but she was still holding something back. We'll talk later, she said gently. For now, just know that I missed you. A lot. The connection faded, leaving me sitting there in the middle of class, my heart racing and my mind spinning. Rimuru was back. And no matter what she'd been through, I knew one thing for sure, I wasn't going to let her face it alone. The classroom was buzzing with activity as the lesson wrapped up, but my mind was miles away, still processing Rimuru's sudden return. I was jotting down some notes absent-mindedly when her voice returned, soft and almost conspiratorial. Can you keep a secret, Izuku? I froze, my pen hovering over the page. Of course, I thought back quickly, my heart skipping a beat. What is it? There was a pause, and then her tone shifted to something almost playful. I've been holding out on you. I can actually use 3 different quirks at the same time. I blinked, my eyes widening as the words sank in. Wait, what? But you said. I know what I said, she interrupted, her voice calm but amused. The hold 1 quirk at a time and 5-second intervals thing? Yeah, I made that up. I felt my jaw drop, and I had to quickly compose myself so no one in the classroom would notice. Why would you lie about that? Her voice softened slightly, though the playful edge remained. Because it's safer that way. If people think I have limitations, they underestimate me. And in this line of work, being underestimated is a huge advantage. I gripped my pen tightly, trying to process what she was telling me. So, you've been holding back this whole time? Even during the missions? Not entirely, she admitted. I used what I needed to, but I always kept a few cards up my sleeve. It's part of why I survived my little chat with All for One. He doesn't know everything about me either, and I intend to keep it that way. My mind raced as I thought about all the times I'd seen her in action, all the strategies and tactics she'd employed. Knowing she'd been holding back only made her seem even more incredible and more terrifying. Why are you telling me this now? I asked hesitantly. Her voice grew serious, the playfulness fading. Because I trust you, Izuku. And because I need you to understand, there's more to what I'm doing than you realize. But no one else can know. Not even Hawks. This stays between us, okay? I nodded subtly, my heart pounding. I won't tell anyone, Rimuru. You can count on me. There was a moment of silence, and then her voice returned, softer this time. Thanks, Izuku. You're one of the few people I can really trust. The connection faded again, leaving me sitting in the classroom, my mind buzzing with everything she'd just revealed. 3 quirks at once. No real switch intervals. Rimuru was more powerful and more secretive than I'd ever imagined. But no matter what, I knew one thing for sure. I'll keep her secret. And I'll be there for her, no matter what happens next. Chapter 15. Bakugo POV. The classroom was noisy as usual, with extras chatting about nothing important. I sat in my seat, arms crossed, barely paying attention. The day had been boring, and I was counting the seconds until I could let loose in training. Then I heard it. "Yo, good to see you again." I froze, my eyes narrowing as I glanced around. The voice was familiar, but there was no one near me who should have been speaking to me like that. "Yeah, I'm next to you," the voice continued, a hint of amusement in its tone. "But you aren't able to see me." My hands twitched, sparks crackling faintly at my palms as I leaned back in my chair, scanning the room. "What the hell?" I muttered under my breath. "Who's messing with me?" "Relax, Bakugo," the voice said, calm but somehow smug. "It's me, Rimuru. How have you been?" My eyes widened slightly, but I quickly schooled my expression. "Rimuru? That silver-haired, golden-eyed weirdo who always seemed to know too much?" I hadn't seen her in months, and now she was just talking in my head? "How the hell are you doing this?" I thought, not entirely sure if she'd even hear me. Her laugh echoed faintly in my mind. "Telepathy, duh. You didn't think I'd come back without a few new tricks, did you?" I clenched my fists, irritation bubbling up. "Why are you sneaking around instead of showing your face? Got something to hide?" "Not really," she said casually. "But I'm laying low for now. Besides, I didn't think you'd miss me this much, Bakugo." "TCH," I scoffed, leaning forward in my chair. "Don't flatter yourself. I'm just wondering why you're wasting my time." "You're still as charming as ever," she said with a chuckle. "Anyway, I just wanted to check in. It's been a while since we talked, and I figured you might want to know I'm still alive." "Barely noticed you were gone," I muttered, though my mind was racing. Why now? Why was she suddenly reaching out after all this time? "Well, now you know," she said, her tone playful. "Catch you later, Bakugo. Try not to blow anything up in the meantime." And just like that, her voice was gone, leaving me sitting there with more questions than answers. I clenched my jaw, sparks flickering at my palms. Rimuru was back, and whatever game she was playing, I wasn't about to be left in the dark. "Damn weirdo," I muttered, staring out the window. But a small part of me couldn't help wondering what she was really up to, and why she'd bothered to talk to me at all. The rest of the day passed in a haze, but Rimuru's voice kept echoing in my head. The fact that she'd talk to me, of all people, after being gone for months, it didn't sit right. She wasn't the type to just check in without a reason. Something was up. As soon as the bell rang, I grabbed my stuff and headed out of the classroom, ignoring the chatter of the extras around me. My mind was already working overtime, piecing together everything I remembered about Rimuru. She'd always been sneaky, always holding something back. And now, out of nowhere, she was playing secret agent in my head? "TCH," I muttered under my breath. If she thinks she can mess with me, she's got another thing coming. I stomped my way out of the school and into the courtyard, glancing around for any sign of her. Nothing. No silver hair, no smug golden eyes. Just the usual crowd of students. "Damn it, Rimuru," I muttered, clenching my fists. "If you're gonna talk, then talk." As if on cue, her voice slipped into my mind again, calm and casual like nothing was wrong. "Bakugo, you're adorable when you're angry, but you really need to relax." I stopped dead in my tracks, my palms sparking with frustration. "Stop screwing around and tell me what you want," I thought, hoping she could hear me. There was a pause, then her voice returned, softer this time. "I don't want anything from you, Bakugo. Not yet, anyway. I just wanted to see how you're doing. But if you're that curious, maybe I'll tell you more when the time's right." The hell does that mean? I thought back, my teeth gritting. "You'll see," she said cryptically. But for now, just keep doing what you're doing. You're going to need that fire of yours sooner than you think. Her presence faded again, leaving me standing in the courtyard with a scowl on my face. She was hiding something. That much was obvious. And if she thought she could keep me in the dark, she was dead wrong. Fine, Rimuru, I muttered, turning toward the dorms. You wanna play games? I'll play. But don't think for a second I'm letting this go. Whatever she was up to, I was going to figure it out, one way or another. As I stomped my way toward the dorms, trying to piece together what Rimuru's deal was, her voice slipped into my mind again, cutting through my thoughts like a fuse burning toward something explosive. Wait, she said, a hint of amusement in her tone. I have a question for you. I groaned, rubbing my temple. What now? I thought back, already irritated. What would make the best explosion? She asked, her tone light but curious, like she was genuinely interested. I stopped walking, narrowing my eyes. What kind of question is that? A simple one, she said. You're the expert on blowing things up, aren't you? So, tell me, what makes the best explosion? I smirked despite myself, the challenge sparking something inside me. Well, that depends, I thought, my tone confident. You talking about sheer size, precision, or destructive power? They're all different. Oh, let's go with precision, she said, her voice carrying a teasing edge. Something that's as beautiful as it is deadly. I crossed my arms, leaning against a nearby wall as I considered her question. If you want precision, you need control. The right mix of force and timing. A small scale, tightly focused explosion packs more punch in the right place than some oversized blast. And it's harder to dodge. Interesting, she said thoughtfully. And what about destructive power? Easy, I thought, my smirk widening. You go big. The more fuel and oxidizer, the better. You want something that lights up the whole area, leaves a crater, and makes sure no one forgets it. That's how you make an impact. Her laughter echoed faintly in my mind. I should have guessed you'd have this all figured out. You really are an explosion nerd, aren't you? Damn right, I thought, pushing off the wall. Now why the hell are you asking me this? You planning something? Not at all, she said, though there was a playful lilt to her voice. Just curious. Thanks for the insight, Bakugo. I'll keep it in mind. Her presence faded again, leaving me scowling at nothing. TCH, weirdo, I muttered, stuffing my hands into my pockets. Still, I couldn't help wondering what she was really up to, and why she was asking me of all people about explosions. If Rimuru was planning something, it was going to be big and I was going to make sure I didn't miss it. I had barely reached the dorms when Rimuru's voice slipped into my head again, this time sounding almost excited. I'll be filming something amazing tonight, she said, her tone brimming with energy. I bet it'll be on TV, but I'll make a special video just for you. I stopped dead in my tracks, narrowing my eyes. What the hell are you talking about? Filming what? I thought back, irritation creeping into my tone. You'll see, she said cryptically. But trust me, it's going to be unforgettable. You like explosions, right? This might even make you jealous. My fists clenched as sparks crackled faintly from my palms. If you're messing with me, Rimuru, I swear. Relax, she interrupted, her voice teasing. I'm not messing with you. You'll thank me later. Just make sure to check your phone after it airs. I'll have something special for you. I scowled, feeling a mix of curiosity and annoyance. You're seriously cryptic, you know that? What's so amazing about this thing you're filming? She chuckled softly, the sound echoing faintly in my mind. You'll just have to wait and see, Bakugo. But trust me, it's worth the hype. And just like that, her presence vanished again, leaving me standing there with a million questions and no answers. I kicked at the ground, sparks flying as I muttered under my breath. Damn weirdo. What the hell is she up to now? Despite my irritation, a small part of me couldn't help feeling intrigued. Whatever Rimuru was planning, it sounded big. And if it really was as amazing as she claimed, I wasn't about to miss it. Fine, I muttered, shoving my hands into my pockets as I headed inside. I'll check it out. But it better be worth it. Whatever she was up to, I had a feeling tonight was going to be anything but boring. Chapter 16. All for one POV. The dim glow of my monitors illuminated the room as I sifted through reports, my patience thinning with every passing moment. Months had gone by without a single trace of Rimuru, copycat, as she was known now. Her silence had been deliberate, calculated, and frustratingly effective. But all things come to light eventually. "My lord," Overseer said, entering the chamber with measured steps. He bowed deeply before continuing. "We've just received confirmation the hero copycat is active in the database once again." I paused, my fingers hovering over the armrest of my chair. "Active, you say?" "Yes, my lord," Overseer replied, his voice steady. "Her status changed earlier today. She is officially registered as an active pro hero once more." A slow smile spread across my face as I leaned back, the weight of the news sinking in. "Interesting," I murmured. "It seems my daughter has decided to rejoin the game." Overseer remained silent, waiting for my response. I tapped my fingers against the armrest thoughtfully, my mind already working through the implications. Rimuru's disappearance had been a strategic retreat, that much was clear. But her re-emergence wasn't just a return to the spotlight, it was a message. "She must believe she's ready," I said, my voice soft but laced with amusement. "To resurface now, after all this time, means she has something planned. Something she thinks will tip the scales in her favor." Overseer shifted slightly. "Should we increase surveillance on her, my lord? Or take immediate action?" "No," I said firmly, holding up a hand. "Not yet. Let her move freely for now. The more confident she becomes, the more she'll reveal. And when the time is right." I let the words hang in the air, my smile widening. "Yes, my lord," Overseer said, bowing again before retreating into the shadows. Alone once more, I turned to the monitors, pulling up every piece of data available on her recent activities. The database update was a clear sign that Rimuru was ready to act again, but what was her endgame? "Welcome back, Rimuru," I murmured, my voice low and tinged with pride. "Let's see how far you've come since our last encounter." The silence of the room seemed to hum with anticipation as I leaned forward, my eyes narrowing. The game had resumed, and I was more than ready to play. The evening further was like any other, a quiet, calculated moment to review plans and await news. But the calm was shattered by a thunderous explosion that rocked the entire compound, sending tremors through the ground and rattling the walls of my chamber. Seconds later, my monitors blinked out, replaced by a cascade of static and error messages. I stood, the faint scent of smoke curling through the air as another explosion roared in the distance. "My lord!" Overseer burst into the room, his normally composed demeanor fractured by panic. "The hideout is under attack. Multiple explosions, fireworks, incendiaries." Before he could finish, another detonation lit up the night sky, visible even from the small, reinforced window of my chamber. The brilliant colors of illegal fireworks cast strange, shifting patterns on the walls, painting the destruction in garish hues of red, blue, and gold. I clenched my fists, my composure unbroken despite the chaos erupting around me. "Rimuru," I muttered, my voice low but certain. Overseer blinked, confusion flickering across his face. "My lord?" "This is her work," I said, my tone sharp. "It's crude and chaotic, far removed from her usual precision. But it bears her signature nonetheless." Overseer hesitated. "But, my lord, this level of destruction is not her style," I finished, narrowing my eyes. "Precisely why she did it. She wants me to think she's changed. To make me question her methods and motives. It's a statement." Another explosion rocked the compound, this one closer, the flames licking at the edges of the corridor outside. Screams echoed faintly in the distance, my operatives scrambling to contain the damage. "She's sending a message," I said, my voice cold and calculated. A declaration of war, delivered in a way I wouldn't expect. Overseer straightened, his fear giving way to resolve. "What are your orders, my lord?" I turned away from the destruction, my mind already working through the possibilities. Evacuate the remaining assets and contain what you can. Let the rest burn. This hideout is already lost. "Yes, my lord," Overseer said, bowing deeply before rushing to carry out my command. As the door slammed shut behind him, I stood alone in the smoldering chamber, the distant explosions casting flickering shadows across my face. "Bold," I murmured, a slow smile creeping onto my lips. "But reckless. You've made your move, Rimuru. Let's see if you can handle what comes next." I turned to the last functioning monitor, its cracked screen showing a distant view of the fireworks still bursting above the hideout, a chaotic display of destruction and defiance. "Even when you try to change your style," I said softly, "you cannot escape what you are. A part of me. And I will remind you of that soon enough." The flames roared higher, consuming the compound as I walked away, my mind already planning my next move. The flames crackled around me, the acrid scent of smoke filling the air as the remnants of my stronghold burned. My operatives were scattered, scrambling to contain what little they could salvage, though I already knew the hideout was beyond saving. And then she appeared. In the middle of the destruction, as if summoned by the chaos itself, Rimuru stepped into view, holding a camera. Her silver hair shimmered in the glow of the fires, her golden eyes sharp with amusement. She waved at me casually, as though this were nothing more than a social visit. "All for one," she called, her voice carrying easily over the din. "Something going on in your big bad hideout?" The question dripped with mockery, and before I could even respond, she grinned, lifting the camera to frame herself in front of the destruction. "Smile for the viewers," she added with a laugh, snapping a quick picture. I stepped forward, my voice cold and sharp. "Rimuru." But before I could say more, she vanished. Just like that, gone into the smoke and shadows, leaving nothing behind but the faint echo of her laughter. I stood there for a long moment, the flames dancing around me as I processed what had just happened. This wasn't just a message. It was a spectacle, a performance designed not only to humiliate but to inspire others. She wasn't just fighting me. She was building a narrative, painting herself as the one who dared to stand against the darkness. And she had left me with a broken hideout to prove it. A slow smile crept onto my lips, despite the frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "Bold, Rimuru," I murmured, my voice low and dangerous. "But you're playing with fire." Turning away from the destruction, I made my way through the remnants of the stronghold, already planning my next move. She may have won this round, but the game was far from over. And when I struck back, I would make sure her audience was watching. As I walked through the smoldering remnants of my stronghold, Rimuru's laughter echoed in my mind, lingering like a taunt. Her bold display, her calculated spectacle, it was all a declaration of defiance, a message designed to undermine me and rally others to her cause. But the irony wasn't lost on me. "Even though you use it against me," I murmured, a faint smile tugging at my lips, "you're embracing my methods, Rimuru. The very tactics you once despised, the ones you desperately swore you'd never use, because they reminded you of me." The thought was almost amusing. For all her efforts to distance herself from me, to forge her own path, she was mirroring my strategies in ways she likely hadn't even realized. Theatrics. Manipulation of perception. Turning strength into a spectacle to inspire fear or hope. "These are my lessons, my techniques," I continued, my voice low and thoughtful. "And now you wield them with precision, believing they make you different from me. But in truth, they bring you closer." I stopped in the middle of the ruins, the flickering light of the flames casting long shadows across the fractured ground. "Isn't it funny?" I mused, my tone soft but edged with mockery. "Your rebellion only proves how much of me has passed on to you. For a moment, the only sound was the crackling of fire and the distant shouts of my operatives attempting damage control. I let the silence linger, savoring the bitter truth of it. "You may believe you're striking at me, Rimuru," I murmured, my gaze fixed on the glowing horizon. "But with every move you make, every display of calculated destruction, you're only proving one thing." I turned away from the ruins, a slow, deliberate smile spreading across my face. "You're more like me than you'll ever admit." The thought filled me with a twisted sense of pride. Let her rage, let her defy me. In the end, she could not escape the truth of who she was. The game was far from over, and now, it was more personal than ever. Chapter 17. Bakugo POV. I was sitting in the common room, pretending not to care about the TV while the extras chatted about some big explosion making the news. It wasn't my style to get caught up in gossip, but the sheer scale of the destruction caught my attention. On the screen, a massive hideout was engulfed in flames, fireworks bursting above it in chaotic, colorful explosions. Heroes and reporters swarmed the area, the headlines screaming about a mysterious vigilante who'd orchestrated the spectacle. "TCH," I muttered, crossing my arms. "What kind of idiot uses fireworks in a fight?" The others kept talking, but I tuned them out, staring at the screen. Something about it felt off. The destruction wasn't random, it was calculated. Intentional. Before I could think too much about it, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, expecting some dumb notification, but froze when I saw the sender. Rimuru. My eyebrows furrowed as I opened the message. "You'd never believe me if I told you, so let me show you." Below the text was a video file. I glanced around to make sure no one was looking, then stood up and left the room, heading to the quiet of my dorm. I closed the door behind me and sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the screen. "All right, Rimuru," I muttered. "What's this about?" I hit play. The video started with Rimuru standing in the middle of a ruined hideout, her silver hair shimmering in the light of the fire around her. She was holding a camera, and her golden eyes glinted with mischief. "All for one," she said, her voice dripping with mockery. "Something going on in your big bad hideout." My jaw dropped as the camera panned, revealing none other than All for One standing amidst the destruction, his expression unreadable. "You," he said, his voice cold and menacing. "Rimuru." She grinned at him, raising the camera to frame herself in front of the flames. "Smile for the viewers," she said with a laugh, snapping a quick picture. The video cut to her speaking directly into the camera now, away from All for One. "Bet you didn't think I'd pull something this flashy, huh? But, hey, sometimes you've got to go big to send a message. Don't worry, Bakugo, I'm still alive. Just thought you'd like a front row seat to the chaos." The video ended abruptly, leaving me staring at my phone in stunned silence. "Rimuru," I muttered, gripping the phone tightly. "What the hell are you doing?" She'd just walked into All for One's hideout, blown the place to bits, and filmed it like it was some kind of joke. And now she was sending it to me like it was no big deal. My hands trembled slightly, not with fear but with frustration. This wasn't just bold, it was insane. "She's gonna get herself killed," I muttered, sparks crackling faintly at my palms. But deep down, I knew better. This was Rimuru we were talking about. She wasn't just reckless, she was planning something bigger, and I was starting to think she wanted me to be a part of it. "TCH," I muttered, shoving the phone back into my pocket. "You better have a damn good explanation for this, Rimuru." Whatever she was up to, it was going to be explosive, and I wasn't about to be left out of it. Izuku POV. The TV in the common room was louder than usual, drawing everyone's attention. I sat at the edge of the couch, my notebook in hand, but I wasn't writing. My eyes were glued to the screen, where reporters were scrambling to cover what looked like a massive explosion at some hidden facility. The destruction was overwhelming. Flames consumed the structure, fireworks lit up the night sky, and the camera panned over debris scattered everywhere. The headline at the bottom of the screen read, "Mysterious Vigilante Strikes Villain Hideout in Daring Explosive Attack." What kind of hero uses fireworks? Kaminari asked, leaning forward on the couch. That's not hero work, Jiru replied, her tone skeptical. That's something else. Yeah, a total disaster, Bakugo muttered from the corner, though he didn't seem as disinterested as he tried to look. I tilted my head, staring at the screen. The scale of the destruction was shocking, but something about it felt different. It wasn't like the coordinated, calculated attacks I'd studied in my notes about pro heroes. This was flashy and chaotic, almost like someone was trying to send a message. But who? I scribbled a few notes in my book, trying to piece together the patterns I saw. Whoever had done this wasn't trying to hide their work. If anything, they wanted the world to see it. Izuku, Todoroki said from the other side of the couch, breaking my train of thought. What do you make of it? I hesitated, looking at the images of destruction again. I'm not sure. It doesn't look like something a pro hero would do. It's too theatrical. Maybe it's a villain taking out other villains, Mina suggested, leaning back against the couch. Or some vigilante with a flair for the dramatic, Jiru added. My heart skipped a beat at the word vigilante. For a brief moment, I thought of Rimuru, but I quickly shook the idea from my mind. No. This wasn't her style. She was precise, calculated, always thinking several steps ahead. This kind of destruction, this chaotic spectacle, didn't fit her at all. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something about this attack was familiar. I frowned, closing my notebook. Whoever it is, I said quietly, they're trying to send a message. We just don't know who it's for yet. As the others continued to debate, I stared at the screen, the image of the fireworks burning itself into my mind. Whoever had done this, they weren't just causing destruction, they were trying to make a statement. And for some reason, I couldn't help feeling like it was connected to something, or someone, I was missing. The debate in the common room was cut short as the news anchor's voice grew urgent. We have a breaking update, she announced, her tone steady but tense. A new video has just been released, claiming responsibility for the recent destruction of what sources are identifying as a villain hideout. Viewer discretion is advised. Everyone fell silent as the screen shifted to the video. At first, it showed a burning hideout, the same destruction we'd been watching, but this time from a ground-level perspective. The camera panned over the flames, capturing the sheer scale of the devastation, and then swung around to reveal someone standing in the chaos. My heart skipped a beat. Silver hair shimmering in the firelight, golden eyes gleaming with confidence, Rimuru stood in the center of it all, holding a camera. No way! I whispered, leaning forward as the room filled with gasps. It's her, Todoroki said quietly, his calm voice betraying a hint of surprise. She's alive. Kaminari blurted out, but no one answered. In the video, Rimuru waved at the camera with a cheeky grin. All for one, she said, her voice carrying over the crackling flames. Something going on in your big bad hideout. The camera panned to reveal none other than All for One himself, standing amidst the destruction, his imposing figure framed by the fire. His expression was unreadable, but the tension in the air was palpable. You, All for One said, his voice low and menacing. Rimuru. Smile for the viewers. Rimuru quipped, snapping a picture before turning the camera back to herself. The video cut to a closer shot of her, away from All for One, as she spoke directly to the audience. Bet you didn't expect fireworks like this, she said, her tone playful but laced with defiance. Consider this a little reminder, no one is untouchable, not even All for One. Heroes, villains, whoever you are, if you think you can keep hurting people and getting away with it, think again. The video ended abruptly, the screen cutting back to the stunned faces of the news anchors. That's all for the update, the anchor said shakily, but this development raises significant questions about the individual known as Copycat, who was previously registered as an inactive pro hero. The room was dead silent for a moment. Then, chaos erupted. What? Kaminari shouted. Did she really just walk up to All for One like it was nothing? Mina added, her voice shrill. Even Bakugo looked shaken, though he quickly masked it with his usual scowl. She's insane, he muttered, crossing his arms. Completely insane. But I couldn't say anything. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of what I'd just seen. Rimuru wasn't just back, she'd just declared war on All for One in the most public way imaginable. She's drawing a line, Todoroki said quietly, his gaze fixed on the screen. And she wants everyone to see it. I swallowed hard, clutching my notebook tightly. Rimuru wasn't hiding anymore. She was making her move, and she wasn't holding back. But as proud as I felt, I couldn't shake the fear creeping into my chest. If she was willing to take on All for One like this, what was she planning next? And how much danger was she putting herself in? She's not alone in this, I whispered to myself, determination settling in my heart. Whatever came next, I'd make sure Rimuru didn't have to face it alone. Chapter 18. Izuku POV. The common room was in chaos, everyone talking over each other about the video. I was still frozen, clutching my notebook, trying to process everything when suddenly. What did you all think of my Bakugo impression? The voice rang out loud and clear, brimming with confidence and unmistakable smugness. We all turned toward the entrance, and there she was, Rimuru. She stood there with her arms crossed, her silver hair catching the light and her golden eyes gleaming with mischief. For a second, no one moved. Rimuru. I stammered, nearly dropping my notebook. Yo, she said, giving a casual wave. Miss me? Kaminari was the first to break the silence. Wait, what? How are you here? You just, on the news, what? Mina jumped up, pointing at her. Was that you in the video? Did you actually blow up All for One's hideout? And did you seriously just shout like Bakugo? Rimuru shrugged, smirking. The video? Yeah, that was me. The fireworks were a nice touch, don't you think? And the Bakugo impression? Flawless, if I do say so myself. Like hell it was. Bakugo snapped, storming forward, sparks crackling at his palms. What's the big idea, sneaking around and pulling stunts like that? You're gonna get yourself killed, you idiot. Are you worried about me, Bakugo? Rimuru teased, tilting her head. I'm touched. Bakugo growled, his fist sparking even more. You're asking for it, Rimuru. All right, she said, holding up her hands. Calm down, explosion boy. I'm here, aren't I? All in one piece. The room was still buzzing with questions, but I couldn't stop staring at her. She looked just like she always had, confident, mischievous, and completely unfazed by the chaos she'd just caused. Rimuru, I said softly, stepping forward. Why are you here? What's going on? She turned to me, her golden eyes softening slightly. I figured it was time to check in, she said. You saw the video, right? Thought you all deserved a little explanation. Besides, I missed you guys. Her casual tone didn't fool me. There was something deeper going on, something she wasn't saying. We've got a lot to talk about, she added, her smirk returning. But first, how about someone tells me how good I looked on TV? The room erupted again, and Rimuru just stood there, looking entirely too pleased with herself. Despite everything, the chaos, the danger, I couldn't help but smile. Because Rimuru was back, and she was as impossible as ever. The common room was still a whirlwind of noise as everyone tried to process Rimuru's sudden appearance and the video of the destruction she'd caused. But amidst all the chaos, Rimuru stood there with her arms crossed, her golden eyes narrowing as she pouted. Nobody commented about me being a hero, she said, her voice carrying just enough volume to cut through the chatter. All you care about is the destruction. The room fell quiet for a moment, everyone exchanging confused glances. Mina blinked. Wait, hero? What do you mean? Yeah, since when were you a hero? Kaminari asked, scratching his head. I thought you were just... I don't know, Rimuru. Rimuru rolled her eyes, her pout deepening. Seriously? I've been a registered pro hero for years. You're telling me nobody figured out I was copycat? Copycat? Jiru repeated, her eyes widening. Wait, you're that copycat? The classified hero with the crazy quirk analysis. Yup, Rimuru said, smirking a little now. Glad to see someone finally catching up. But you've never said anything about being a hero before. Mina exclaimed. Because I didn't feel like bragging, Rimuru said with a shrug. But you all see a little firework display, and suddenly it's all, oh, destruction. What about the fact that I've been a hero this entire time? Bakugo snorted, crossing his arms. Maybe if you didn't blow up an entire hideout like a damn lunatic, people would have paid attention to that. Hey! Rimuru shot back, glaring at him. That was strategic destruction. Looked like a party, Kaminari muttered, earning a jab in the ribs from Jiru. I stepped forward, clearing my throat. I knew, I said softly. I knew you were a hero. Rimuru turned to me, her pout vanishing as she smiled faintly. Of course you knew, Izuku. You actually pay attention. I felt my cheeks heat up, but I nodded. I always thought what you were doing was amazing, even if you didn't tell anyone. Her smile widened, and for a moment, it was like no one else was in the room. But then Mina broke the silence. Wait, she said, holding up her hands. How come Izuku knew and none of us did? Because he listens, Rimuru said, shooting a pointed look at the rest of the group. Well, maybe if you didn't keep secrets, Bakugo started, but Rimuru cut him off with a laugh. Fine, she said, waving her hand dismissively. Now you all know. I'm a hero. Feel free to be impressed. There was a beat of silence before Mina grinned. Okay, fine. You're a hero. That is kind of cool. Kind of. Rimuru shot back, raising an eyebrow. I blew up All for One's hideout. That's more than cool. The room erupted into chaos again, everyone talking at once, but Rimuru just smirked, her confidence shining through. I smiled, watching her soak in the attention, but I couldn't shake the thought that there was more to her return than she was letting on. Welcome back, Rimuru, I whispered to myself. We missed you. All for One POV. The faint scent of smoke still lingered in the air, a cruel reminder of the audacity Rimuru had shown. The hideout, one of my most secure and valuable outposts, was now nothing more than ash and rubble. The fireworks, the destruction, it had been a spectacle for the world to see. And now, the video was everywhere. Her smug face, standing amidst the flames, mocking me in front of millions. I sat in the quiet of my chamber, my fingers steepled, watching the footage play on the monitors once again. The scene was burned into my mind, Rimuru's casual confidence, her mocking tone, her golden eyes daring me to respond. All for one, she had said, that infuriating smirk on her face. Something going on in your big bad hideout. I rewound the footage, watching it again. Every detail of her demeanor was calculated, designed to provoke. The destruction wasn't just an attack, it was a statement. She's become bolder, I murmured, my voice low. And yet, this isn't like her. Such theatrics, they are not her usual style. A faint knock interrupted my thoughts, an overseer entered, bowing deeply. My lord, he said carefully. The video continues to circulate, and public sentiment is overwhelmingly in favor of the so-called hero, Copycat. Many see her as a symbol of defiance against you. I chuckled softly, the sound reverberating through the chamber. Of course they do. Rimuru knows exactly how to manipulate perception. She learned from the best, after all. Overseer hesitated. Should we respond, my lord? Or perhaps, target her directly? I shook my head, my smile cold. No. Not yet. She wants me to react. She's goading me into a move that serves her agenda. But Rimuru forgets one thing. I stood, turning to face Overseer, my presence looming over him. She is not the only one who can play this game. Overseer nodded, though I could see the unease in his posture. Your will, my lord. What are your orders? I paced slowly, the sound of my footsteps echoing through the chamber. Let the public rally behind her for now. Let them see her as a hero, a beacon of hope. The higher she climbs, the harder she will fall when I crush her. Yes, my lord, Overseer said, bowing again before retreating into the shadows. I turned back to the monitors, the footage looping once more. Rimuru's face stared back at me, her confidence practically radiating through the screen. Enjoy your moment, Rimuru, I murmured, my voice soft but laced with menace. But remember this, you are still my creation. And no matter how high you rise, you cannot escape what you are. I watched the footage again, for what felt like the 100th time, searching for every nuance, every subtlety in Rimuru's actions and words. The destruction, the fireworks, the mocking tone, all of it carefully orchestrated. But then, something struck me. A small detail I had overlooked until now. She hadn't called me father. Privately, Rimuru had always addressed me as such. Even in her defiance, even in her rebellion, that title had remained a tether between us, a sign that, no matter how far she tried to run, she couldn't truly sever the bond we shared. But in the video, she had deliberately used all for one. Not once. Not twice. Repeatedly. And what's more, she had framed it so publicly, ensuring that the world would hear her call me by that name. She had stripped away the personal, reducing me to a symbol of what she stood against. A slow, cold smile spread across my face as the realization settled in. She's trying to force a response, I murmured to myself, my voice echoing in the still chamber. By addressing me as all for one, she's creating distance. She wants me to do the same. To respond to her by name, not as daughter. It was a subtle move, but a calculated one. By removing the familial connection, she was attempting to redefine the narrative, not just for the public, but for me. She wanted to strip away the personal, to turn this into a battle of ideologies rather than a confrontation between father and daughter. Clever, I admitted, leaning back in my chair. But misguided. I steepled my fingers, watching her smug expression on the screen. The fire in her golden eyes, the defiance in her tone, it was all so very Rimuru. She was playing a dangerous game, and she believed she was in control. But she was wrong. You can call me whatever you like, Rimuru, I said softly, my voice laced with amusement. All for one. Monster. Enemy. But you cannot escape the truth of who you are. I leaned forward, the glow of the monitor casting sharp shadows across my face. You are my creation. My masterpiece. And no matter how hard you try to distance yourself, that connection remains. Forcing me to respond with her name instead of daughter was a deliberate attempt to take power away from me, to rewrite the narrative in her favor. But it was an illusion. Because I didn't need to call her daughter to remind her of what she was. You'll stumble, Rimuru, I murmured, a dark smile spreading across my face. And when you do, I'll be there to remind you of everything you've tried to forget. The game was becoming more personal with every move she made. And I was more than ready to play. Chapter 19. Rimuru POV. The quiet night air hung heavy around me as I walked down the dimly lit street. For the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't on the move or in the middle of some mission. I wasn't surrounded by chaos or explosions. It was just me. I had kept things quiet after my stunt with the fireworks and all for one's hideout. Sure, the buzz was everywhere, but I needed to lay low for a bit. The last thing I wanted was to give him an opening. But I also needed some air, time to clear my head and strategize my next move. As I walked, my golden eyes scanned my surroundings instinctively, always alert. But even my heightened awareness didn't prepare me for what happened next. The streetlights flickered once. Twice. Then went out completely. I stopped, my body tensing. Well, that's not suspicious at all, I muttered under my breath. Before I could react further, the air around me seemed to shift. A heavy, oppressive presence filled the space, and suddenly I wasn't alone anymore. Rimuru, a deep, familiar voice echoed from the darkness. I spun around, my heart pounding as his figure emerged, tall, menacing, and cloaked in shadows. All for one, I said, my voice steady despite the chill that ran down my spine. I was wondering when you'd show up. Couldn't stay away, who? You've made quite the spectacle of yourself, he said, his tone cold but laced with mockery. But now, it's time for the games to end. Before I could respond, the shadows around him shifted, tendrils of darkness reaching out toward me. I moved quickly, trying to counter with my quirks, but something was wrong. The air felt heavy, almost suffocating, and my reaction time was just a fraction too slow. One of the tendrils wrapped around my arm, then another around my leg. I struggled, but more of them lashed out, pinning me in place. You're slipping, Rimuru, he said, stepping closer. Or perhaps you underestimated me. I glared at him, gritting my teeth. Let me go, you overgrown ego trip. He chuckled softly, the sound sending chills down my spine. You've made this personal, my dear. And now, it's time for us to have a more private conversation. The world around me blurred as the tendrils tightened, and the last thing I saw before everything went black was his cold, unreadable expression. When I came to, I was somewhere completely different. The air was cold and metallic, the room dimly lit by flickering lights. My arms and legs were restrained, and I could feel the faint hum of a suppression device dampening my quirks. I tried to move, but the restraints held firm. Great, I muttered, my voice echoing faintly in the empty room. This just keeps getting better. The sound of footsteps drew my attention, and moments later, All for One stepped into view, his imposing figure filling the space. Comfortable, he asked, his tone almost polite. I shot him a glare. Oh, absolutely. This is exactly how I wanted to spend my evening. His laughter was low and sinister as he stepped closer. You've been a thorn in my side for far too long, Rimuru. But now, we're going to have a little chat. No cameras, no fireworks. Just you and me. I clenched my fists, my golden eyes narrowing. Fine, I said, my voice steady despite the fear curling in my chest. Let's talk. But don't expect me to go easy on you. His smile widened, cold and unrelenting. Oh, my dear, I wouldn't dream of it. The room fell silent, the tension thick and suffocating. This was going to be a long night. All for One POV. The room was dimly lit, the faint hum of the suppression devices surrounding Rimuru casting a low, rhythmic pulse. She was restrained, her golden eyes glaring at me with all the defiance I'd come to expect. Even now, in chains, she held herself with a confidence that bordered on arrogance. I stood just out of her reach, watching her struggle against the bonds, the faint shimmer of her suppressed quirk abilities flickering futilely. How fitting, I said softly, my voice echoing in the chamber. After all this time, after all your efforts to distance yourself from me, here we are. Together again. Her glare deepened, but she said nothing. You've made quite a spectacle of yourself, Rimuru, I continued, pacing slowly around her. Fireworks, destruction, theatrics, not quite your usual style. But I must admit, it was effective. Glad you enjoyed the show, she shot back, her voice sharp. Too bad it cost you one of your precious hideouts. I chuckled, the sound low and menacing. Do you truly believe I care about a single hideout? No, my dear. That was merely a piece on the board. Sacrificed for the sake of the greater game. Her defiance wavered for just a moment, and I seized on the opening. What I find truly fascinating, I said, leaning in slightly, is how much you've changed. The Rimuru I trained, the Rimuru I mold, would never have resorted to such crude, chaotic methods. She flinched, barely perceptibly, but I saw it. And yet, I continued, my tone softening to something almost resembling admiration. You used my own techniques against me. Theatrics, manipulation, a public display to shift the narrative. You're more like me than you care to admit. Don't flatter yourself, she spat, her golden eyes blazing. I'm nothing like you. I smiled, the expression cold and unrelenting. Aren't you? You've built yourself a following, haven't you? The people see you as a hero, a symbol of defiance. But heroes are just as easily swayed as villains. You're playing my game, Rimuru, and you're doing it beautifully. She struggled against her bonds, her frustration evident. I'm not playing your game. I'm ending it. I laughed, a low, chilling sound that echoed in the chamber. Oh, my dear, the game never ends. You've simply chosen to sit on the other side of the board. But make no mistake, you're still a piece in my design. I stepped closer, leaning down so that we were eye to eye. And no matter how far you run, no matter how loud you scream, you will always be my creation. Her glare didn't falter, but I saw the flicker of doubt in her eyes. You taught me one thing, she said quietly, her voice steady despite the weight of my words. How to think 10 steps ahead. And that's exactly what I've done. I tilted my head, intrigued by her confidence. Is that so? You think you've caught me, she said, a faint smirk tugging at her lips. But you have no idea what you've just walked into. I straightened, my smile fading slightly as I studied her. She was bluffing. She had to be. And yet, the game had just shifted, and for the first time, I couldn't tell who held the advantage. Then let's see how far ahead you've planned, Rimuru, I said, my voice sharp and commanding. Because now, the real game begins. I turned away, the echo of her smirk lingering in my mind as I left the room. Let her play her games. She was in my grasp now, and I would remind her exactly who held the upper hand.